He did right there. It means action. Live from New York. It is Fox and Friends for a Monday. It is already the 27th day of July, and there is a heat advisory for the Big Bad Apple. It could be 101, the heat index, through tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Stay in the air conditioning. Watch cable, folks.
That's exactly right, because it is going to be so hot that it's okay. It's summer. You know, I'm thinking it's the end of July. School starts
already
in like another month in some places. Here in New York, it's after Labor Day. We're all wondering if it's going to start. Brian, how was your weekend?
Well above average, and I would add, I'd add this. I'm cleaning out my shed. I wish you could have been there. Number two is I just can't believe normally at this time we're getting ready to go to the conventions, and both conventions are so scaled back. It's hard to even plan to think that we're going to get anything even out of it, let alone attend it. I don't even think they want us to go. So there you go. Well, Steve, get us started.
Right. The DNC was already supposed to be over. It is a whole new world. So anyway, thank you for starting your week with us. And we start this program with the Fox News.
Very, very close with the Department of Justice, the FBI, as well as others. And I will say that we're going to have additional actions probably as early as this week. We cannot continue to let law enforcement officers targeted and injured. And what's going on in Portland is violent crime every single night. And again, I'm asking the city, the state to step up, do their job, work with federal law enforcement, and let's bring this to a peaceful conclusion. The department strongly supports individuals who want to peacefully protest. You want to exercise your First Amendment right? There is no concern. In fact, that happens in Portland every day. There's no incidents, there's no arrests, and we're fine. It's this violent criminal activity that has to stop.
Violent criminal activity that has to stop, that overwhelms the message that people have about George Floyd and racial justice and equality. World, a lot of people think that part of the unrest is what's happening with the coronavirus. And when it comes to what's happening with the coronavirus, some of the ramifications not only of health of 140,000 Americans plus dead, but you have the economy brought to its knees and a need for a fifth rescue package. Nancy Pelosi is upset, even though she's known as a human rain delay when it comes to all this. She's upset about the fact that the Republicans are insisting on having liability insurance and protections built into the back-to-work push. Listen.
We place no responsibility on your employer to make that workplace safe. And if you get sick, you have no recourse because we've given your employer protection. And if you don't go to work because you're afraid of being sick and you have that job opportunity, you don't get unemployment insurance. This is so unfair. Let's just get to the heart of it. At the point of all of this is this president, I have a new name for him, Mr. Make Matters Worse. He has made matters worse from the start. Delay, denial, it's a hoax, it'll go away magically, it's a miracle, and all the rest.
Which she doesn't know because she is very, very rich. She ignores all the homeless in her city and the unrest that's plaguing Oakland and harassing the mayor of that city, is the fact that there are businesses that want to be able to bring people back to work but can't afford to be sued if something happens, which, by the way, is out of their control. There's a balance between a workplace that's safe and doing something that's practical. So, therefore, she wants to give you $600 and 70% of your benefits to stay home and not work. Congratulations, it's worked so far. And then you want businesses to be left on the hook should somebody get sick with a virus that even the leading scientists around the world can't control.
Ainsley, you've got a crazy camera on you right now.
And Joel's fixing it.
Joel is fixing it. So anyway, Mitch McConnell is going to roll out a $1 trillion rescue bill later today. The Democrats would like to see it 3 times bigger. But nonetheless, Nancy Pelosi, who now has a new nickname for the President of the United States, she was the topic that Ted Cruz was referring to yesterday over on CBS and said the Madam Speaker simply does not have it straight for what America needs right now. Watch.
We have right now 2 simultaneous national crises. We have a global pandemic. At the same time, we have an absolute economic catastrophe. Speaker Pelosi, her objectives are focused on neither of those. Her objectives are shoveling cash at the problem and shutting America down. And in particular, you look at the $3 trillion bill she's trying to push. It's just shoveling money to her friends and not actually solving the problem. Our objective should be Americans want to get back to work. They want to be able to provide for their family.
Right, exactly. People do want to get back to work. The big question is, how large will those additional unemployment benefits be? Will it be 70%? If so, that would probably mean you would go from a $600 check to $200. And the other problem is apparently about half of the Republicans, Ainsley, in the Senate are going to vote no to any stimulus. So we don't know exactly where this is going to go.
Republicans want $1 trillion. Democrats want about $3 trillion. Nancy Pelosi, as we've been saying, objects to the Republican liability waiver for employees. She also wants more money for school preparedness. So we'll continue to follow this for you. In the meantime, let's hit it up to Jillian. We all got that message across our phones, if you get the Fox News alerts, saying that legendary TV host Regis Philbin died of natural causes at 88 years old. We all have watched him for years, a 60-year career. He spent over 17,000 hours in all of our homes. And look at Steve checking out his hairline. What's going on there, Steve?
You know what? It was just one of those things. He had a new show out. We were doing some stuff. He was one of the greatest broadcasters of all times. He got started after he left the Navy in 1955. He got started at an LA TV station parking cars. Eventually, he was a stagehand. He worked as a sports producer until the sports guy didn't show up one day, and Regis was ready to fill in, Ainsley.
Here he is with us over the years.
If you want something in life, you've got to go for it.
Yeah.
You've got to go for it. And you've got to tell people, and it's there for your taking. But you're the one that has
Sure. If something big would happen, I always wanted to see how Regis would handle it.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Well, how did I handle it? Was it different than anyone else?
You talked about it rather than just say a few lines. It was 1984. I'm in college. You said you've never forgotten this moment.
No, you're absolutely. It's coming all back to me.
Right.
I would grow a beard about 10 days. Impossible right now. 10, yeah?
Why is that, Brian?
The facial growth is behind what we like it to be right now.
It means a lot. Right in here, if you have to know, big boy.
Next to
Fox News has to know. See a few hairs up there that we can pull out.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Sports Edition.
Really?
Yes.
Exciting.
How many football championships has St. Mary's won?
I can use you, Woody. All right, let's talk about it.
2, 3,
I would
0.
say 3.
See, all right, 3.
The correct answer is 0.
Oh, thanks a lot. This is so much fun being one of the Fox friends.
He's firing his agent now. Who put him on the shelf? Yeah, I just think he may be the best, most successful person ever as a host because he was himself. You know, you hear these stories about Carson was a totally different person off camera than on camera, and other people. Regis Philbin was Regis Philbin from day one, and his conversations, the stuff that he learned in the Bronx, sitting around the table with his big family, he says he was able to put that into practice after serving in the military, and he never looked back. He just kept working. Every opportunity he had, he took that job and kept moving forward, kept trying to grow. And I thought the other thing that was pretty evident that I saw, he was as kind to people coming up as he was to people who were the superstars in the business. Everybody knew him.
You know what? And Brian, to that point, Regis was out in Dallas, and he crossed trails with my first cousin, Mike Ducey, who is the voice of the Dallas Cowboys. He's the main sports anchor at Fox 4 in Dallas. And he tweeted this out yesterday. He said, I met Regis years ago at a fundraiser with Roger Staubach. Our station aired his show, and the next day he went on and on about meeting Steve Ducey at Roger Staubach's house. He later sent me this totally unnecessary apology. What a broadcaster, what an amazing career. And what he wrote there, it says to Mike, sorry about that Steve thing. You're my favorite Ducey. Best. Regis. How great is that?
He was so funny. And I love Kathy Lee. I'm friends with Kathy Lee, and I was texting with her, just telling her I'm thinking about her, and I read what she put on Instagram. She said, a long paragraph, but I'll read a little bit of it. She said she smiles knowing that he's making someone laugh up in heaven at this very moment. She said will never be anyone like him. They worked together for 15 years, and they were always on in all of our homes. He was just so adored, talented, charming. His expressions were so funny. I remember when kids would come on set, I knew it was going to be hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Such an entertainer.
Because he was a great listener. It was always about the guest. It wasn't about him. I was able to interject and move things along, make everyone feel important. I remember when I was in college, they said, hey, you guys got to go watch a live show. Everyone chose the morning show. They opened it up. And then I got picked out of the audience. That was that clip in there. And I went down, interacted with him, interviewed him for a radio show I was doing since my college is just outside New York City. He gave me like the best 40-minute interview that I ever had.
He just plucked you out of the crowd?
Yeah.
You were 20?
Yeah, I was right in college. I was a sophomore in college. And then I was able to keep in touch with him over the years. Afterwards, he would shake everybody's hand at that point when the morning show became a national show. And keep in mind, now Kelly and Ryan Seacrest, they're doing great. But they get a fraction of the audience that Regis got because everything was about the networks back then. Cable was relatively new. So he was getting like 10, 20 people watching him every day. Not only did he have a unique name and unique talent, but the whole world would just zero in on that show with Kathy Lee and then Kelly Ripa. So he was famous beyond famous. And Chet Collier was one of the people to give him one of his huge breaks. Chet Collier was one of the architects along with Roger Ailes, who mentored Roger Ailes, that started Fox News. So there was a direct link, and you heard all those stories about how hard he worked and what he did to become maybe the best that ever was.
Two things, Brian. One, your son looks so much like you. Just saying. Brian.
Really?
Kilmeade, spelled differently. Absolutely. And two, that was the easiest show in the world to direct as a director because you would just hit camera one and then you would leave for 20 minutes because they would stay on that one shot for 20 minutes because it was all about the talk.
Right. A devout Catholic. He will have his funeral at Notre Dame.
He will indeed. Regis Philbin, rest in peace.
You will be missed. Well, we talked about this earlier. The next COVID-19 relief package set to be unveiled on Capitol Hill today. What can the millions of unemployed Americans expect? Charles Payne is here with his predictions next.
We want to move forward quickly. The bill will be introduced Monday, and we're prepared to act quickly. This is all about kids and jobs. This is our focus, and we want to make sure something gets passed quickly so that we deal with the unemployment and all the other issues.
It's all about kids and jobs, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin says as he previews Republicans' $1 trillion Phase 4 relief plan expected to be rolled out later today by Mitch McConnell. Here with details, Charles Payne, host of Making Money on Fox Business. Charles, it sounds like there's probably going to be $1,200 checks, aid for schools to the tune of $100 billion, tax credits to encourage companies and rehire workers. There will also be liability protections for businesses so that if they have people come back, they don't get sued by somebody who says, I got sick going back to work. Nancy Pelosi does not want that. Why is that?
I'm not sure. Really, I can't understand it, particularly in a state like California, which has had the largest demand from small businesses for PPP relief, by far, by the way, than any other state. They've closed down, they came back, they closed down. They've been inconsistent in their policies. They're probably not going to let a lot of kids go back to schools. If you talk about, a state that needs some sort of liability protection for any small business that's even able to operate in that environment, it's California.
Sure. Apparently, according to the Washington Post, Congress might have to pass a narrow piece of legislation this week. Can't get the whole thing done. Might have to do just a little bit because those $600 checks are about to go away and some other stimulus as well. Is that a signal that the economy is slowing down to the point where there's a red warning light on the dashboard at the White House?
Well, it's a signal that we didn't come back enough, honestly. Listen, it's been a miraculous rebound, one that no single maven expert anywhere on Wall Street, anywhere in this country thought was even possible. Look at that new home sales number on Friday. That being said, though, we still have between the pandemic unemployment claims and the old school unemployment claims, 30 million Americans. So we're making this huge, amazing comeback. But to extend it, they have to figure something out. We need these bridges. By the way, also a moratorium on evictions is really critical, and I think that's going to be in the Republican plan as well.
Exit question. Democrats want $3 trillion. Republicans want $1 trillion. But nonetheless, it sounds like 50% of the Republicans in the Senate aren't even going to vote for any stimulus. Where does it wind up?
I think about 1.4 trillion, something like that. The 70% of income is going to be tough. You know, I did the math, and if you're in Alabama, you're going to get $400 less than you've been getting. Arizona, $300 less. Georgia, almost $500 left. That's a lot of money if your job has not come back, and you add in some of the other issues. Because, you know, listen, travel, tourism, retail, restaurants, there's still a lot of those businesses that will not come back immediately.
Yeah, right about that. All right, Charles, thank you very much. We're going to be watching you on Fox Business today at 2 o'clock this afternoon, Eastern Time. Thank you, sir. Meanwhile, on this Monday, we are now 99.
Former Vice President Joe Biden expected to announce his running mate any day now, and the contenders were out in full force over the weekend bashing President Trump. Watch.
This is Donald Trump in a last gasp effort to use every tool at his disposal, legal or illegal, to try to win re-election.
I am so concerned about where our country is at this point in time. We have had a president that has just torn us apart.
The president is doing everything he can to instill fear, while Joe Biden is talking about a plan for the future.
As Biden's announcement draws near, Kamala Harris is reportedly seen as the favorite as the clock ticks toward that convention. Joining me to discuss is senior policy analyst at the Independent Women's Forum, Kelsey Bolar. Thanks for being with us, Kelsey.
Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. So let's go through all of the people on his short list. Most people are calling for him to pick a woman, an African-American woman. Kamala Harris is seen as the favorite, although it's not locked in. What are the pros and cons of Kamala?
Absolutely. Well, Joe Biden is waiting for the last minute to make this announcement, and I can't blame him because I'm not sure any of these names he just listed would satisfy the base, which is so divided between the defund, the police radical base, and the so-called moderates, if they can even exist in the Democrat Party anymore. As for Senator Kamala Harris, certainly she has the name ID to bring in some votes for Biden, but she lacks any enthusiasm. We saw this with her own campaign. We also saw her spar on page with Joe Biden. So a lot of people, I think, would question, do they have a genuine relationship, or is this just all politics?
Do you think she resonates more with the moderates?
That's the problem with Kamala Harris that she faced when she was running her own campaign. No one was quite sure what she stands for. When she served as AG in her own state, she had a very tough on crime position. And yet now she has pivoted to support some of the more radical measures that her party is calling for. So I think that's unclear, and I think that's also why she is unable to really get any of the excitement that someone like Bernie Sanders had, because people actually believe that Bernie Sanders supports the policies that he's fighting for, despite them being, of course, so radical.
Right. We've learned more about Val Demings, and she was a former police officer, currently an American politician, a congresswoman from Florida. What about Karen Bass? Because Politico's saying that she's rising as a sleeper pick. What do you know about her?
Yes, well, she has relatively low name ID, but she does have a good resume for the moment. She heads the Congressional Black Caucus. She has worked behind the scenes on a lot of the issues that have come to the forefront today. And so on paper, she might be a good pick for Joe Biden. But again, she would speak to more the far left base, not the so-called moderates. And Joe Biden supposedly is running this return to normal candidacy, and so a pick like her would contradict the very reason he said he was entering this race.
It's been reported she underwent intense scrutiny by the Biden campaign, and one of her friends says it was very invasive. We'll see. There's also Susan Rice, Val Demings, as well as others. We just showed you that, all those pictures up on the TV. But August 1st is Saturday, and he said he's going to announce at the beginning of August. So we'll see. Thanks so much, Kelsey, for being with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. 6:34 here on the East Coast. Lindsey Graham hinting at big trouble ahead for the FBI.
Next week, you're going to learn more. Not only did the FBI lie to the court about the reliability of the Steele dossier, they also lied to the Congress.
Dan Bongino is here to react next.
Not only did the FBI lie to the court about the reliability of the Steele dossier, they also lied to the Congress, and that's a separate crime. The intelligence community did not want to include the dossier in the intelligence assessment provided to President Trump about the 2016 campaign because they didn't trust it. So they started asking questions of the FBI in 2018 about the subsource and how reliable this information was. And I found the notes that the FBI used to prepare that briefing Mr. Horowitz told us about them. I found them. Stay tuned next week. You're going to find not only did the FBI lie to the FISA court, they lied their ass off to the Congress.
Right. And we don't usually use that term, but it really emphasized the point. Let's bring in Dan Bongino, Fox News contributor, former NYPD officer, and I would argue knows as much about this investigation and stayed ahead of the curve more than anybody else in the country. And what Senator Lindsey Graham is saying, Dan, is something you've been saying for a while. So if you have this in the Russia investigation, you wonder who Christopher Steele was talking to in Russia that gave us all this information that was unverified, but other networks were sure it was true. So who was this person in Russia? Was he Vladimir Putin's buddy, best friend, relative? Who was it?
Well, it wasn't a person in Russia. It was a think tanker down the block from Washington, D.C. A think tanker, by the way, who was interviewed by the guys. Listen, I said this on this show. I wish I could pull the tape if I was in the control room. Probably close to a year and a half ago. I said in January of 2017, there was a meeting with the individual Christopher Steele said he got his information from. I was told this a long time ago. The person he said he got his information from is interviewed by the FBI and said, "This is all crap. It's garbage. I didn't say this. What I said he misconstrued. I didn't say this part at all. It was made up. I told everybody this." Comey knew about this. Everybody knew about this. Why is that important? They now found the guy, the think tanker, who wasn't in Russia, was down the block from the White House. Right. That's right. And now he's out there saying, listen, I'm not responsible for this Orbis report. Orbis is Christopher Steele's company. That's his bag of donuts. But Steele's saying he said it. These two both can't possibly be telling the truth. And now that we know they're all lies, here is the real question, guys. This is the $64 quadrillion question. We know the information's fake. Put that baby to bed. The dossier's fake. It's made up. Even the Democrats acknowledge that now. The people it's attributed to are real. The real question now is, how did Steele tape this segment? The real question that may involve some criminality is, how was Steele connected with the real people?
Right.
And attributing fake information to those real people. How did he get those names, especially if they were those names and what they were doing was classified?
Yeah, see, for years we've been told that information came from a Kremlin time zone, but as it turns out, maybe just about a mile from the White House. Here's Devin Nunes yesterday on Sunday Morning Futures, and he had an interesting observation at the conclusion of this soundbite, and it all ties in with the Brookings Institute. Watch.
We think there is a connection between the president of Brookings and those dossiers that were given to the State Department that mirrored the Steele dossiers, which, look, all of this, what does this mean? This was the Clinton campaign's dossiers. It was the dirt. It was a phony story that they sold not only to the American people, but they sold it and corrupted our FBI, where it appears like these dirty cops were more than willing to take this information and present it to the FISA court. So we've now expanded our investigation, full-blown investigation into the Brookings Institute, and it really centers on two issues. One is the IRS. This is a tax-exempt organization. They're supposed to stay out of politics. They clearly have not done that.
So in addition to the criminality that you're suggesting, it's a tax thing.
So this part's killer here. So the president of Brookings, when this is going down, is Strobe Talbot, who was a high-level diplomat in the Bill Clinton administration. So he's at Brookings, right? Strobe Talbot's brother-in-law, follow me here, is a guy by the name of Cody Shear, who pretends to be a reporter. Cody Shear and Sid Blumenthal, Hillary Clinton's lieutenant, were out spreading the same dossier. That, you call it the Steele dossier. It was the same information, a separate dossier, but the same information all over D.C. Strobe Talbot running Brookings, where one of the alleged primary sources Steele was working now, They're all in this together. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy, but it's not theoretical. They all knew each other, is my point. And then Victoria Nuland, who also knows Strobe Talbot, they worked together at one point. She's also alleged to be one of the people trafficking that information into the State Department. So here's the bottom line. You have this dirty football of fake information it's made up, attributed to real people who are sensitive sources. How those people got the sensitive sources name to put on the fake football, that's the question. And then that fake football is passed around to the State Department, the FBI, everywhere who will touch it. And you basically have to John McCain. Yes, you can't absolve some Republicans from this too. And you basically have a massive information laundering scandal where fake information is made to look real, to hijack the justice system and spy on a presidential candidate. It is the biggest political scandal in our history. There's no longer any doubt among serious people.
So the Brookings Institute is a nonprofit public policy organization. It's located in Washington, D.C. What is the harm, if this is true, in Brookings having this?
Well, as Devin Nunes said, and he's right, you have now an organization, some tax-exempt or some tax-privileged organization that's playing a central role, apparently or allegedly by some, in an information laundering scandal, trying to basically hijack the justice system to get a FISA warrant. I mean, they were tools to take fake information, put the patina of reality on it by putting real people's names on it, and then using it to spy on a candidate. Think about it. There are two people here who are super important. There's the primary subsource, who Brian mentioned before, who has a credible work history, if you get what I mean. His name is slapped on fake information, even though he didn't say it. Did they know that? It appears the FBI did. And then secondly, you have Christopher Steele's name slapped on the Steele dossier, even though Steele acknowledged the information wasn't his. And you have to ask yourself, why did they do that? Because Steele was a former Russia expert. So they knew if they slapped his name on it, that it would appear real, even though it wasn't.
And in a byproduct of all this, keep in mind, Christopher Steele testified that he thought, he was under the belief that Hillary Clinton knew all about his investigation, knew all about this thing, even though they say they had nothing to do with it. So this all could be coming together.
And the FBI knew it was false,
They're
Brian.
trying to play out the clock.
They knew it was false.
They're trying, I know. They're trying to play out the clock, thinking that Joe Biden's going to win in November. They're trying. Thanks so much. You've been all over this. Talk to you again.
Thanks, guys.
Look forward to see what develops this week. Meanwhile, Janice Dean, let's go to you because you have been quite busy with a lot of action.
Yeah, the tropics are busy. We had Hurricane Hannah make landfall across South Texas over the weekend. And still watching Hurricane Douglas, 90-mile-per-hour sustained wind. It just scraped the islands of Hawaii. They are so lucky they didn't get the worst of the rain and the wind and the storm surge. But as you can see, it is still affecting the islands. We're still going to see the potential for heavy rainfall, as well as the rough surf and the flash flooding over the next several hours. This is our next storm system that we think is going to get a name. Probably tomorrow, Isaias is going to be the I-named storm, and we're going to have to watch the development of this system because it's going to move into the Caribbean and watch the computer models getting a little bit too close for comfort towards the East Coast next week. So something we're going to have to watch. It has been a very busy tropical season thus far, and we're not even into the peak yet. Here's your forecast today. We're going to deal with the showers and thunderstorms across the Gulf Coast. Still the potential for flash flooding because of the remnants of Hannah over parts of South Texas, dealing with monsoonal moisture for the Southwest, and it's hot and humid across the East Coast, including New York City, where it's going to feel like close to 100 degrees today. So make sure that you're taking all the precautions, checking on the elderly, bringing your pets inside, and staying inside where it's air conditioned.
Yeah, I can't get my pets outside,
summertime.
so don't worry about it.
Yeah, stay inside and watch
no
cable.
pets outside.
A lot of red on that map. Thank you, Janice.
Bye.
Bye. The NFL reportedly warning players that they could lose their pay if they go to high-risk events for COVID-19. Is that a good idea? Former NFL player Jack Brewer is here to discuss it next.